next oldest brother, Tom, graduated from AUM. I'm going to call it AUM because that's what it was last time, instead of Auburn Montgomery. Went to Wetumpka High School. It was a good education. It wasn't stellar. You know, public schools in Alabama were good then. They're good now. But it was you know, it didn't prepare me to go off to Harvard or Yale, and I didn't want to. I started working at an early age. Had jobs from the time I was 14, so I kind of got a taste for money. I was the youngest of 4 children, and by that time, you know, your mom and dad begin to dote on you because they want you to hang around, so I wanted to move out. So coming to AUM was a natural choice for me because it allowed me to stay in the area, have the jobs that I had, live on my own, and pursue an education that I didn't know at the time was going to be so good to me and good for me. My siblings were all musicians. They all got their degrees in music in various places. So I had sort of an affection for music, certainly, but the arts in general, and that sort of path in life. Instead of becoming a physicist or a banker, I moved toward the arts, I spent 8.5 years at AUM. But it was not, you know, it was sort of a happenstance.
I didn't understand that perfectly.
It's because I worked. I would work a quarter on the quarter system. I'd work a quarter and go to school a quarter. Sometimes I'd do a little of both. And back then, I think the tuition for a quarter was $235. But my dad mercifully paid that for me, so I didn't have to work more than one job to go to school. You know, my career is not that distinguished, not as nearly as distinguished as Dr. Berger makes it sound like, but let's jump forward 8.5 years from when I went to AUM, and I'll tell you briefly what I've done since I got out of it. I worked in radio a lot, had most every radio station in town. I was a disc jockey. I went to Channel 20, which is now Fox affiliate, CBS at the time, and we did radio. And a friend of mine, Jerry Carpenter, was a weathercaster there, my best friend, and he would have to be off, and so I thought, you know, I was still at AUM with a theater major, and I thought, you know, I'll probably try this, getting on television, because it seems sort of like similar kind of stuff, and sure enough it was. I did the weather for him a little bit, and then one day, I saw that there was I heard through the grapevine there was a job at Channel 12, which was like, you know, for even though I lived in this town, that was like New York for me. Channel 12 was really sort of up there in a place that you didn't think you'd ever get to. But I went and applied for the job, and strangely enough, Carl Stevens, whom many of you may know of or remember, he only died last year, but he was the program manager, and he gave me a job as a new weathercaster. I did voiceover work and talent work, and did a little 5-minute program that was associated actually with the main campus. It was called Alabama Almanac. For 5 minutes every morning. It was on tape, but I learned all about cowpea cuculio and nematodes and that sort of thing. It was a farm show, which I didn't know anything about. And all my relatives in Covington County just laughed because he doesn't know anything about that. But I did that for a little while, and then a job came open as the news promotions producer. Television stations, at least here, were a little behind the curve, but they started deciding, oh, we ought to promote our news on the air try to get people to watch us instead of the competition. It was the first time we had a news promotions producer. I took that job on. I said, I'd like to try that, so they let me. After a few years of doing that, the marketing director, Leslie Bailey, whom many of you may have seen on television, just cooking segments, she left and went into the catering business, and I applied for the marketing director's job, and I had just enough experience, and the general manager liked me just enough to give me that job. So I was the marketing manager for a while. Carl Stevens retired in the late 90s, and I offered to do that, asked if I could do that in addition to the marketing job, and I was allowed to, that and operations. So I was doing a number of things in the late 1900s, late 1990s and 99. The internet was beginning to be, so it was the late 1990s. The internet came about, and we had a website. I didn't create it. It was sort of an arrangement with MSNBC, because we were an NBC affiliate. But when it got to be sort of serious, and the management said, you know, this could turn into something, they asked who on the management team wanted to step up and take charge of that, and so I raised my hand, because I like taking new challenges, and so I did that. Eventually told them I had to quit marketing because that was too much work, and the programming operations got to be sort of not as much work. The internet turned into what we call the digital platforms now, and they got to be really a whole lot more work and a whole lot more important. So about 4 years ago, I began to ask them if I could just do internet, digital, the website, the mobile platforms and all that, because I knew it needed it. And 2 years ago, they let me do that. So now, long story short, or long story long, I am the internet content manager, which is, I have a team of 4 internet content producers, and I work with everybody on the news team to put content, news content and other content on our digital platforms. Our website, we have 26 local net sites, communities around the area. We have a news app for every major mobile platform, mobile operating system, weather apps, and social media, as you all know, is becoming so much more important as a part of what we do in the news business. So that's sort of the short version of the path I have taken. And I think if there's a lesson in that, if I might be allowed to offer a lesson to anyone going forward, it would be always be willing to certainly to take on a new challenge, but be the one that raises your hand and say, yes, I'll try that. And I think everybody should change jobs, if not employers, at least every 5 years. It just keeps you from getting stale in what you're doing, or change what you do in some fashion to keep from getting stale with it. But it really did pay off for me, and I think it will in this day and age, certainly, because we all have to multitask and be multi-talented and do many things. So I would say do that if you have the opportunity. I stayed connected to AUM through my work life with projects and committees. I've been on a number of them, a number of projects with the station and things that I've been involved in personally, and it was good. And the lesson here is, is to do that, is to stay connected if you're in the community, even if you're not, with people here and with the school, because there are all sorts of ways that an institution like Auburn Montgomery can get involved in and help whatever you're doing. I think about the one that comes to my mind most was when Dr. Nance was chancellor here. I had her at school, and she and I got to know each other. And we wanted to put a radar somewhere, because we wanted to put a local radar, our own radar, not use the weather services, and it has to go on something. And of course, if you walk around, you've noticed that it's on top of this building. And we were able to make an arrangement with Auburn Montgomery so that they would house our radar. We'd give them some publicity, and it was just a great situation. And I kind of like to think that part of that was because of what Dr. Nance and I, our relationship, and we sort of moved that forward. So those kind of things can happen when you keep your alma mater close to you after you leave. So that was 2013. Now we're going to jump back in about 41 years, if that's acceptable, to my experience at AUM. I was in the theater department. It's not exactly what it wasn't exactly what it is now, but I think it's probably as similar as a lot of departments are in what you do and how you go about it. The old theater that I first came here in was Goodwin Hall. There was the largest, you probably already know this, the largest lecture hall in Goodwin was the theater. And we put sets together outside, out the back doors, out on the little walkway out in the sunshine. We would build sets. Mark Pilkington was the first theater director here. I remember he knew I was in television, and he enjoyed talking to us in class about television. When he would talk about, he would refer to the actual television set as the Starsky and Hutch. Because he had such disdain for television. I was talking about the Starsky and Hutch the other day. My wife was watching something else. Dr. Bob Gaines was here through most of my time as the head of the theater department, and a fellow I have a lot of respect for and became friends with. He and Blair both. Donetta Hornsby was the tech director here. She married, like a couple of people did, other professors here. She married Mr. Cooper. I don't know if he was a doctor in ontology or something. Anyway, but she was here for a while. And Oliver Billingsley, I was asking somebody about. Is Dr. Billingsley still here?
He's retired and come back to teach.
Okay. Well, I had him for a couple of classes, but he also wrote a play version of Billy Budd, which we did. That was one of the productions that I was in. I got to wear old person makeup, which I remember very well. I was in Fiddler on the Roof, was about the biggest production we did. We did Tennessee Williams' Camino Real, which was a hoot. It wasn't a hoot to the audience so much. And then I had the male lead in Philip Mary's Holiday, which was sort of a costume period piece, which was a lot of fun. Student life here it was non-existent. Everybody, no one lived here at the time because there were 3 buildings here. There was Goodwin Hall, and there was the Liberal Arts and just the English building, or the Liberal Arts and the Liberal Arts
Education
building over there, and the Student Center. And other things were built after that. Everybody commuted in and commuted out. It was, and it was out here in the middle of nowhere. This was a big field. So that was one thing that was I wished I'd had, and I envy you all to have this here. You know, we didn't. You know, I didn't walk at my graduation. A lot of people didn't do that back then. It wasn't too cool. But I got to walk a couple of years ago when I was honored to be in a group of 40 graduates of the liberal arts program who were honored a few years ago, and I got to walk at graduation, which was I really enjoyed it. I mean, I recommend to do that, even if you have to wait 30 years to do it. Like I say, it took me 8.5 years because I kind of meandered through, and this is really a significant part of my experience here. I was not one of those lucky kids who said, I want to be this, and it's going to take me for this, and 4 years to get there, and then I'm moving on. I enjoyed school, and I enjoyed learning, and I enjoyed the liberal arts program here. And one day, Denise will vouch for this, we were sitting in her living room, I was studying for a test or something, I looked at my credits and did some math, and I said, oh, honey, I think I can graduate. What would your degree be in? I don't know, let me go look and see. And it was speech and theater, which is what I enjoyed and what I wanted to do, so that's sort of my experience in meandering through Carl Montgomery. AUM was sort of a humble place then compared to what it is now. It has changed a lot, and it's so much for the better, and I'm so proud of what AUM has become. And I know you will be 30 years from now when you leave and come back here and see, you know, it'll be even this much more better than it is for the past 30 that has transpired. You know, what I learned, what was the value of what I learned, and I hope the things that I'm about to say will resonate with somebody in terms of looking for these sort of things to find value in at this school. You know, if you're like me, most of what I learned in class, the facts I learned, sort of got stuck away in a wrinkle in the gray matter. You may pull them up sometime if you think, oh yeah, I remember that, I learned that in school. Or they may be part of a group of wrinkles that go to help you develop and understand and you know, do something else. But for the most part, you don't remember a lot about what you learned. And as I was preparing to do this, I thought, you know, what do I remember about school most vividly? I went and got my transcript. I bought it from whatever that company is that you buy the transcript from, just to remind myself of who all I had. Funny thing, I thought I went to school on and off pretty much constantly for 8.5 years. And I looked at my transcript. There was a 2-year period when I didn't come here at all. So 8.5 years is not so bad. That I did not come here at all, which was sort of interesting. But I was able to see the classes I took, and for the most part, remember the professors that I had. But I just want to mention a few people and tell you what they meant to me and why I remember them, and that I think may be a good experience. Leadership is an important quality, and I haven't developed it near as well as I should have. I'm not the leader I should be. But Dr. Bob Gaines was a leader. I remember that about him here. He was such a strong personality, had a great voice. I would have given anything to have his voice. Smart guy, and did a really good job with the theater program, and people followed him. I remember we were in rehearsal. One of the students, who was kind of my age, was older than the rest of the students, fancied himself being more like Bob's contemporary. That's called him Bob. And so he would get by with calling him Bob in private, and Dr. Gaines would never say anything about it. But one day in rehearsal, he told the back of the rehearsal, he said, Bob, I got a question about what I'm doing. And Dr. Gaines said, that is Dr. Gaines. Everybody sort of got quiet. And you know, it sounded sort of hokey at the time, sort of like, I'm Dr. Gaines. But he said it in such a way, and it would just reinforce the fact that, you know, he is a leader. He is doing what he does very, very well. And there is a certain amount of respect that goes with it. I'm pretty mindful of that. So you all can call me Dr. Martin. But Dr. Gaines was a leader in helping learn leadership. His wife, Blair, I never had her for a class, but she asked me to adjunct here a few times. And the first time she asked, I said, are you crazy? I can't do that. And she asked me over a course of a few quarters, and I kept denying her because it was a course that I really didn't feel qualified. It was broadcast news, which is really not my forte. But she kept saying, you know, you can do this. And just that experience helped build my confidence even after I had left here. She apparently knew something about me that I didn't know. One of my great lessons that I've learned in life is the importance of being prepared for things, no matter what it is you go out and do. There are very few things you're not going to have to know what the good preparation does. And Donnie Hornsby, when we did Holiday, the preparation that she did, we were talking earlier about what you all were doing, how quick you turned around, you know, to get ready for the show. We spent a long time in the theater for a few weeks using transactional analysis as a basis for learning who our characters were and how we were going to interact with each other. And it helped when we developed our characters, it helped in the performance. And that one small lesson, you know, really has helped build my attitude of, and I tell everybody this when they ask me, you know, if you've got a project to do, so much more important the time you spend in the very early part. The preparation is so much more important, certainly than the last bit of time that you spend doing something. And in the case of theater or in television, when you do it, it's gone. It has to be good, and the preparation is so important. Dr. John Fair taught history here for a while. Not just a striking figure. He was a good-looking man. He taught weightlifting here, a very imposing figure. But he taught me, in some ways, the power of speech. You know, a lot of lectures you can't really sit through. It depends on the subject matter. And his was history, and that was interesting. But I was just mesmerized by him. I remember that about him very well, and even years after thinking, I really enjoyed sitting and listening to him. The same thing was true with a few of my professors, but I think about him. Gayle Grinheim taught music here. If your mother ever told you, you know, life is not fair, what I learned from her very early on in a very sort of comical way, she told us one day in class, she said she had made A's she'd never made anything but A's all her life. She got in college in her sophomore year, one of her professors gave her a B when she deserved an A, and she was so incensed about it. She said, you know, the lesson she learned, he did it just because she said she needed to make a B. Nobody needed to go through class. And then she, you know, she said she learned the lesson that life is not fair. She died back in 2010. And here's another lesson that I learned, and you should all take from this. I did not know that she died. I wouldn't have made it to the funeral. It was far away, but it would be nice to have known that. I'd like to have expressed my condolences to her. So it kind of pays to keep up with not just your co-students, but with the people that meant something to you in school. Dr. Joseph Schwartz, I think he was Dr. Joseph Schwartz.
He was
head of the art department. I took art history and art appreciation from him, and I can still see him sitting up there in a dark lecture hall with a slideshow, going through these images of things that I had not been exposed to before, and the enthusiasm with which he spoke about each one was just, it just really ratcheted up my desire to learn so much more about the plastic arts. What a guy. I remember him well. Dr. Don Bogey, who I think is retired now, but did the demographic program here and was in sociology. Really, I like Dr. Bogey a lot. He and I got to be friends, and I call him Don. And we worked on some committees together, even long after AUM. But I really, really learned so much about the human experience beyond what I knew from the courses that I took and the way he taught them, cultural geography and a few others. It was just really eye-opening, and I could have learned it from anybody, but it made it so much more memorable with him. Donnie Nobles made me change my political persuasion. I told you I was going to talk about it. I had a persuasion course, and we had as a project to do something, to write a persuasive argument for something, and I picked libertarianism, and I became a libertarian. And that speaks for itself. And the power of what you can do. And then Dr. Nance, the last one, Dr. Gwen Nance, many of you may remember her. She was chancellor here, but she did teach here. You know, there's not anything specific I can remember about her, but a few things that she said. We got to know each other afterwards, and we were friends. But all I took was a lit crit class. But the thing I remember about it that really typifies not just her, and not just what I learned in her class, but really typifies what I learned from a liberal arts education. And we were criticizing or looking at being critical of a William Hazlitt poem. And when we got to the end of it, she said, does anybody know what line from this poem I'm going to have put on my tombstone? Well, every one of us raised our hands because we knew her so well, and it was the line, all that is worth remembering of life is the poetry of it, in the big sense, poetry. And that, you know, I got thinking about that. That really is sort of, to me, what my liberal arts education has been all about. My schooling, my education here has been good for my career. It has certainly helped me become as successful as I have been, to whatever degree that is. But more importantly, it has sort of informed my life experience in so many ways that go so far beyond that. And every kind of education wouldn't do that. A liberal arts education has a better chance of doing that. And a liberal arts education at every school, I don't think will do that. I can only speak for AUM, but I can tell you that it was a rich experience for me, and I'm grateful for it. In fact, the last thing I'll tell you, we got asked to speak to the graduating class at Elmore County High School. It was in the early 80s. And I couldn't think of what I wanted to tell them, because I think it's got to be pretty good, talking to high school students and send them out into the world. Semi-rural area of Elmore County, half the kids probably didn't go to college, weren't planning to go to college, but I decided what I would tell them, and I did tell them. The essence of what I told them was that not to let anybody talk them out of going to school, and that there was no substitute for the value of a liberal arts education, and I spoke of AUM when I spoke of that. And I would like to think maybe somebody in that group heard it and did something that they wouldn't have done, pursued a liberal arts education, and maybe pursued one here. AUM means a lot to me, and I'm very grateful for being given this distinction and this honor, and I hope that you all have the same experience that I did. And thank you to all the professors who are here, who were even not here when I was here, for carrying on this tradition. It means a lot to me, and I appreciate this. And